Hello and welcome to PTDubs.
PTDubs.
Personality type dubs is what that stands for.
Yeah. Right. That is
Yeah,
what that
this
stands
is
for.
this is the personality type podcast hosted by me, Thalo, an ENTP.
And me, Paul, and ISTP.
And today we're going to be talking about type 9s, which we also both are.
Right? Type 9 of Enneagram, that is.
Type 9s in Enneagram.
Um,
This is an Enneagram day.
Yeah.
This is definitely an Enneagram day.
Right? Like, don't skip Enneagram Day. Never skip Enneagram Day.
Never. So, um,
Yeah, so I just went through like some kind of an epiphany /
Right.
like late nights hardcore searching.
we
that I'm
just figured out that you're a type 9.
Yeah, at least that's what we're gonna go for. There's still certain things on the table, but I think
Are there?
I'm gonna. Well, I mean, like, I this is a thing with me is because I jump around.
Yeah.
Because I'm a type 9.
You're fucking 9, dude.
So I jump around, and I've done that so many times in my life, in general, where I've learned to like jump onto something, but I know I'm not gonna live here.
I feel, given what you said to me before we started recording about your late night research,
Yeah.
reasonably confident that you are indeed a type 9.
Well, there's more of I was not a 5.
Okay.
What I did know for certain, that I will hold this to my grave, is that I'm not a 5.
Yeah. I feel like if you're not a 5, you gotta be a 9. Because I'm thinking you're not a 1 because there's like plenty of things in your life that you could have been like, oh my god, this is corruption, this is cancer, I can't be doing this. But you weren't. You were into, like, I don't know, experimenting with things that could be seen as corruption. I don't think there's any way you're a 2. I don't think there's any way you're a 4. Right, we just established that you're not a 5. I remember originally you thinking that you were a 6, but I don't think that's a possibility anymore. Not a 7, and not an 8. 3, I don't know. But that could also be, I mean, there is the integration point from 9 to 3. And they're both attachment types.
Well, right now I will say I am on the high that I
You
am
are
a
on the
9.
high.
I'm on the
Yeah.
like I was just being very aware about
Very
it.
careful.
I'm very aware. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm very aware.
Right.
And this I was more of saying about a Paul thing. Like, I'm not going to necessarily not. I'm not going to go into any other types to talk about necessarily their types. I think 9s. Like, I'm going
Okay.
to talk to you.
Right.
We're 9s here,
Right.
and we're doing this.
Right. We're 9s here. We are the crown of the Enneagram. We are better than everyone else for this.
Right? So, like, kiss the crowns on my jewel, though.
Yeah,
No,
I'm
the
pretty
jewel's on my
sure
crown, though.
We're the kings of Enneagram right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
As we sip.
I'm royalty for this. Bow to me.
So, yeah, we were just reading some things on Reddit that I think, that, like, I'm glad that you agree these are super 9 things.
Oh yeah, such 9 things. Because the whole, the passion of the 9 is sloth or indolence.
Right.
And the, what do they call it? The virtue of the 9 is action.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these things that we're reading, were just about. Okay, so here I'm gonna pull up this lovely page on my phone. Here we go. So we have type 9. It's an ego type. Not important. Its fixation is indolence. That's what it calls it. It calls it its fixation. Its trap is seeker. I have no idea what that means. I have no idea what that means as Travis Seeker. Its holy idea is holy love. Its passion is laziness. Okay, so it calls its passion laziness. But really, I mean, what's the difference between indolence and laziness? Not really much. So its fixation and its passion are basically the same thing. And its virtuous action. And all the things that we were reading on Reddit were talking about, like...
Yeah, what was the sense that you were getting?
Yeah, the general... So it was like this Reddit thread that was all about...
It was like a growth for Type 9 collection, which was the...
Basically, it
was
was
the
like...
subject of line, but...
It was like a bunch of one-liners of self-help written specifically for Type 9s.
Yeah.
Is like... Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And like the general sense that you get from reading it is just like, I don't know, it's like the fucking Nike motto.
They even
just
put
do
it.
it.
They put that in there.
Did they really? They put just do it.
Yeah, they're like, I know this is cliche,
right?
But I guess
the marketing person who made the Nike motto was a fucking Type 9.
It was fucking Type 9.
They were talking to themselves.
Right.
Just do it.
And someone overheard them and was like, oh shit.
Right. Or a lot of it was like, don't settle. You'll just get what you've got in the past. Like, stand up for yourself. It wasn't exactly saying stand up for yourself, though that was the sentiment. It was saying, like, try to get what you want.
Well, I did hear something like... So this will kind of help. Let's start like a little digging in deeper to Type 9. It's like... Because I hear that, like, stand up for yourself. Like,
yeah.
Let's try dissecting Type 9s from that standpoint. Like,
yeah.
What was it that you were like, not stand up for yourself? Like, stand up for yourself was getting to something that you think could be a misinterpretation of what a 9 should do? Why do you think it's... why is that a misinterpretation?
No, I don't really think it's a misinterpretation. All I meant by that was that when I was reading through that page, they didn't actually use the nomenclature stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe just because stand up for yourself sounds a little condescending, maybe because it sounds a little too cliche. All I meant is that they're using nomenclature that's like very close to that.
Okay.
But not exactly that, just for whatever reason. I don't really know.
Yeah. Okay. To provide like a little bit of context of how I found this Reddit thread and why it really meant something to me when I finally found it. Well, for one, I couldn't find anything like that was positive about Type 9. Like, it was all about saying, yeah, you suck.
Because Type 9 is a pussy.
Right, I'm like, okay,
Type 9's a huge
there's
fucking
gotta be
pussy.
a way out. Like, yeah, I took the red pill, but how do I get out? So, with Type 9 being a pussy, I was also looking at, like, careers for Type 9s. Because I'm also in between jobs. So
right,
I'm like, even though it's still up for debate, like, even in my logic, whether Enneagram could have any correlation with what jobs you do, but it helps me get like an idea of like stereotypes. It also gives me an idea of like what do people think about Type 9s, and it gives me just something from food for thought. So I was like really not knowing what to do, and a lot of people were saying, yeah, you really don't know what to do as a Type 9. Or, like, you don't really have a sense of direction, or you don't have a sense of self.
Right. I think that Type 9 is interesting because they're a withdrawn type along with 4 and 5. But they're sort of
passionless.
No.
Or,
not.
Yeah, what do you mean?
I wouldn't say passionless, but like, right. So there's I forget what this triad is called, but there's the withdrawn triad, the assertive triad, and the compliant triad. And the withdrawn triad is 4, 5, 9, and I think like 4s are like most in touch with themselves, right? They're withdrawing into who am I. 5s, I think, are also like pretty in touch with themselves in like a more like mental way because they're part of the thinking triad.
I've heard interest as well. Like,
yeah,
they're in touch with their interest.
What 5s are very much in touch with their interest. And so this is why I think that 9s are interesting because they're this withdrawn type who like theoretically you're thinking about like, oh, withdrawn type, okay, so you're like obsessed with yourself kind of.
Someone said I've heard fantasies a lot.
with regard
with
to
type 9s, like
Really?
they live in a fantasy type world. What
Yeah.
this is like the main picture of the past 2 nights of research that I got was that they have like this want for peace, right?
Sure.
And anything that comes in this piece, they will move out of their emotional center to allow these some like adverse things.
I get that.
It's like, hey, this is something I don't really want to do, but I'm going to allow it to happen to allow objective or whatever harmony.
Yeah.
And so they have this. I think they might be withdrawn, and then they pour all of their thinking stuff into a fantasy land. What would type 4 is it's their selves, type 5 is into things and interests, and type 9 it's into this idea that's not really manifested. Tell me if you're vibing with me.
Yeah. Well, so I'm just gonna finish my thought. I was saying
Please.
that like 9s, they withdraw in a way that, with the other withdrawn types, you'd expect it has something to do with themselves, but they're simultaneously withdrawn and they aren't in touch with themselves. I don't know. That's one reason why I think
this is a funny withdrawn type because it's
Exactly.
not in touch with
Exactly.
things
How
that-
the
yeah.
hell are you withdrawn yet not in touch with yourself? What the fuck is going
Right,
on?
where are you going? Like, yeah, you're withdrawn. We're
Right.
cool with that part.
Yeah.
But where are you going?
Where did you go, dude?
Yeah, right.
You can't just go interdimensional
Yeah.
and like be nowhere. What the fuck, dude?
Right.
They deseparated. And no, but I totally resonate with what you were saying. Type 9s.
How do you have a fantasy land?
I mean, okay,
Like-
so I don't think of it as like a fantasy land,
Yeah.
but basically, like, this is what's going on. Let's say some shit is going down. Let's say that
If you don't, that's totally fine. But if you have real life examples for yourself, that'd be dope.
I can't think of a real life example right now.
Sure.
Though I'm gonna be trying to throughout talking about a hypothetical.
Cool.
So let's say some shit is going down, and like, I don't know, fuck, this isn't even a real example.
Just do it.
Something
Like
something
Nike.
that you don't just do it. Something that you don't want to have happen is happening.
Ah.
That's
Yeah.
all. Right. This is
Yeah,
super
no,
abstract.
I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with
yeah,
you.
dude. I've been there, dude. Yeah. Oh man, that's so vivid. That's so real.
I'm here right now. Like,
Holy
I
shit!
don't want
I don't want to be here. I hate podcasts. Let's say that some shit is going down that you don't want to have go down, and then instead of like reacting to it, you just conform to it in this way that's like, you know what, this isn't a big deal. Like, I think of it a
Right.
lot in terms of like inertia and like physics.
Yeah.
And you literally follow the path of least resistance in the most direct fashion possible.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, you don't even, I mean, you probably don't even tell yourself at that point that you don't want it to happen. You're probably just like, oh, this is
Yeah.
actually fine. I thought that I didn't want this to happen. This is actually
But it's
fine.
happening, and
Yeah.
what am I gonna do about
Right.
it?
What am I gonna do? Right. Let's see. I could stop this from happening. That's too much work. I think I'm just gonna not do anything. That's easier.
Right.
That seems easier.
Because to do anything about it, see, the another thing is, I think we have this response. I think it actually feels weird. Like, I think when something that's going, it was like, fuck, I see something that's about to happen, and I know I don't want it to happen, and then, so I'm gonna, like, move, like, I think you feel it in your body that something's about to happen, and it all sounds like you're going back to the fantasy land. You retreat into your fantasy land where you are detached from your body.
Yeah.
So, like, you are letting your body feel these weird ass things, and a normal type, quote unquote, would then move into a different space. Maybe would move or try to like react in such a way where it's like, let me mitigate this thing that's about to happen, and I'm willing to go through the uncomfortable feelings of dealing with this problem head on, so that it's dealt with, as opposed to a 9's like, let me retreat into a space in my mind or fantasy land
Yeah.
so that, yeah, I'm feeling like shit.
Right. In a sense, the fantasy land is just just the land in which you don't care that much.
Yeah.
Another thing that I wanted to talk about
Yeah.
was sort of the way that I see Type 9 manifesting in me in particular as an ENTP. Because I sort of think I think of the Enneagram types as the why, and, you know, why am I doing what I'm doing? And then your Myers-Briggs type as the what, as how does this come off to other people, and how does this come out of me, and how, sort of the what and the how.
Okay.
But it's all coming from that core why.
Okay.
And so, like, with regard to my type ENTP, I think that I think of SI fourth a lot, and I think of FI seventh.
Okay.
Those are really the main points that I think about with regard to how is Type 9, I don't know, leaving my body. How am I expressing type? How is it?
Or at least that's why. How is it expressing through the ENTP filter?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
exactly.
no, I'm totally with you with the analogy there.
Yeah. Okay, dope.
Yeah.
And like so SI fourth. One thing that I think of SI, or well, really either of the introverted perceiving functions, SI or NI, is that like it's a worldview. It's a solid and complete deep worldview.
And also it being in our full. We'll keep going.
Well, right. So it's my fourth. It's my inferior function.
Right.
Right. My worldview is inferior. That's, in one sense, the self-forgetting thing. Oh man, what is my worldview? Oh, I kind of forgot what my worldview is. I'm NE dominant. I'm just like fucking exploring the world, seeing all these possibilities and shit. What the fuck am I? Where am I in terms of seeing the world? Doesn't fucking matter. Doesn't matter.
It's my fourth.
It's my fourth.
Yeah.
It's inferior. I forget about that shit. I forget where I'm coming from. Another thing,
filtered and expressed.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk more about that? How it
Well,
leaves...
I was going to say another thing about the fourth function is that. So I think at once it is your inferior, right? It's your worst of your top four functions.
Yeah.
In another sense, it's sort of this thing that you want more of. And Type 9, for better or for worse, gets associated with introverted sensing. And in its association with introverted sensing, the reason is that it's like about like inner harmony and inner peace.
Interesting. I never knew what to think about introverted sensing. For me, that was always
that's sort of one thing. That's why I think that like SI DOMs come off as so chill.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part.
Yeah.
And
we're also talking about filters too when we're talking about
is that it's
function,
right? Because SI is kind of the opposite of SE, and I feel like SE is not chill. It's ready.
Yeah.
It wants something to fucking do.
Yeah.
And SI is just like, where am I at? How am I doing? I don't know. Maybe that's more of a self-pres thing. But I do think of it that way, and I do think of your fourth function as this thing that you kind of want more of. And so if I'm kind of wanting more of this, like, one, just my own worldview, but two, my own, this sense of, where am I at, internally. I think that makes perfect sense with regard to SI. Another thing that I do sometimes is I confuse FI and SI, because they're both these introverted functions, right? FI is like, what are my values?
Right.
How am I think of the introverted judging functions as more of a process, whereby you've got something to judge,
Mm-hmm.
and the introverted perceiving functions as
Judging data. I have not after being. Oh wait, yeah. Unless you're, sorry, I'm like.
no, what were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say that introverted. I want to say that an introverted sensing process, or an introverted perceiving process, is judging in data internally.
Well, so
Unless you're a judging.
wouldn't that be
dominant.
what an introverted judging function is?
Sorry. Okay. Wait. We're talking about introverted sensing.
Right. Well, I'm talking about SI versus FI.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I feel like the stereotypes of both FI and SI are like checking in with yourself, checking where you're at, checking how you feel about something.
Mm-hmm.
But I think of FI as like this, like it's a process whereby you're judging something, you're discerning some information, you're coming to a conclusion about something with regard to your values, whatever they may be. FI gets to value whatever the fuck it wants. It's introverted. It gets to be as idiosyncratic and detached from the world
Mm-hmm.
as it can be.
Right.
Whereas I think of SI as like this static worldview. Like I think of the extroverted perceiving functions as extremely dynamic. And I think of the introverted perceiving functions as extremely static.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the reasons why I think that the IJs can be very stubborn. This is one of the reasons why I think that SI DOMs can be very impressionable. That
Mm-hmm.
first impressions probably matter the most to SI DOMs.
Mm-hmm.
And so in trying to like
How does this all connect back to the type 9?
right, and so now
And you is specific.
right now
ENTP.
now that I'm distinguishing between SI and FI,
Mm-hmm.
what I wanted to talk
You're
about
talking
was,
about your
was
fourths.
FI seventh.
Yeah. Okay.
So FI as the point of least resistance, as the vulnerable function.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a lot of FI DOMs do have a good sense of their values. And I just wanted to distinguish SI being their worldview and FI being their values. And I know that can maybe sound like a bullshit distinction, and like, why isn't there tons of overlap between your worldview and your values, right? All the 8 functions are mutually exclusive, given you have the proper understanding of them. I don't have the time to get into a good explanation of that right now. I should do that on a later podcast.
That's fine.
But for now, I'm just gonna move forward. So with FI 7th, I do think that high FI users are very much in touch with their own values, and so this is sort of another way that I see that same trait of being disconnected with your own identity, the way that type 9s, this withdrawn type that's somehow disconnected with their own identity, how an ENTP 9.
So you're saying, is it a double whammy for
yeah,
you?
Yeah, pretty much, right?
Not only are you type 9, the most not in touch with themselves type in the Enneagram, you're also an ENTP who's SI and FI are...
Right, I've also got fucking FI 7th. Fucking FI 7th.
Yeah.
And that's not helping at all.
Right.
And so that's just like, oh, of course you're out of touch with yourself. You're FI 7th. I don't know. These are just 2 reasons why I think that ENTP 9 makes a lot of intuitive sense, which is not to say that I think that there are incompatible Enneagram types and MBTI types. I do think that
you can be any
combination. I
do
do think you can be any combination. I know that's kind of a hot topic for some people.
Right, we're talking about
That
a
gets
very
to be
controversial
hotly
thing. Right?
debated. Maybe we'll get into that in the
Like
future.
on your Wikipedia page, it'd be in your first introductory summary. It's like they lamenting talking about very controversial topics about MBTI and Enneagram, any combination that have its own hyperlink or whatever. So
The great Enneagram Myers-Briggs type combination debate.
yeah, right. Of 2017. Um, of the turn of the 21st century.
Oh.
Or yeah. But yeah, so you got a double. How do you think that meant? Like, where do you see that manifest? Are you aware enough? Do you feel to see that manifested in your life? Does that? Are you able to see these things like in raw data?
One thing, I was just talking to someone about this earlier today. One way that I think of. See, I'm not even sure whether I should attribute this to Type 9 or whether I should attribute this to FI7.
But tell us, yeah, air out your dirty
is
laundry.
That like, here's the dirty laundry, buddy. Is that like I'll say some shit like, I care about caring.
Mm-hmm.
I want to want.
Okay.
I like liking.
Yeah.
I love to love.
Right.
But like, I don't have anywhere to direct that energy.
Yeah.
And I think this is like a way that like, just sort of an obvious sense in which like, oh yeah, your FI is shitty. You have maladaptive FI.
Maladaptive, you're
maladaptive. Right? Like, oh, you like, you...
Oh, your mother didn't feed you FI when you were little? Oh, you poor thing. Look at you, all skin and bones.
All skin and bones!
All Any and TI.
You poor TI motherfucker.
Right.
That's exactly one of the ways that I see it.
Yeah.
Right, is that I have this sense of like wanting, but I have no idea what to do with it. I have no idea what to do.
So you feel like you don't, like, so you want to want. And like, I feel like the formula was like, you have this energy, but I want to exert it. And it's like, so do you feel like you haven't exerted your energy really into like anything where you feel like I'm exerting energy?
No, I sort of have. So that's another thing is that I'm SXSO. Didn't mention that early in the podcast. I'm SXSO. And so I feel like with SX as the first instinctual variant, I do very much have that want for intensity, and I kind of wonder if that's where that sense comes from, mm-hmm. of, wanting to want, mm-hmm. etc. Because that is all very much concerned with intensity. Mm-hmm. But so your question was, right, have I
right, the real
gotten that out? Have I done things? And I think I definitely have. I think I do throw myself into my pursuits. One obvious thing right now is throwing myself into typology.
Yeah.
Throwing myself into personality type theory, and just getting really into it, getting intensely into it, getting, all kinds of passionate about it.
Right.
And yeah, really wanting to learn more.
Right. Xing the fuck out of it.
Right. Really merging with it.
Yeah.
In the way that like an SX Dom will merge with some shit. Yeah, just getting really into this project that is satisfying my curiosity about personality type.
But in all of this, and I do agree you're merging, like, I remember I haven't like really spoken with you because I was working a bunch and you were in school, but you were still discording.
Right.
And getting into typology. And then I see you in summer where I have more free time and like you're out of school right now. So, and I'm like, holy shit, like everybody knows you. And like on this, on this typology specific server.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you really, I also can attest that you have thrown yourself into this, but you're still type 9 nonetheless. So how you type
But I'm
9ing
still a
about
type
this
9.
stuff?
Um, I mean, in one way, um, I don't know. They call Type 9 the peacemaker.
Right.
Um, that's like maybe a misnomer. I feel like it's more the inner peacemaker.
Like
Um,
making peace with yourself. Or like
yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
feel
so there will be some Type 9s who are like trying to maintain the peace because they're so disconnected from themselves that they're so connected with the people around them, that they're like, maybe these are the SO Dom Type 9s. I'm not exactly sure how that fits into the theory, but they're so attached to the people around them that when they see conflict arising, that's sort of them feeling separation, right? Because their core fear is fear of separation, and when people are having conflict with each other, and they have merged with these people so much, they've identified with them, more than they're identifying
right,
with
right.
themselves.